Happy Sunday and happy birthday to composer Sergei Prokofiev, painter Joseph Malord William Turner, and poet William Shakespeare. All three celebrate their birthdays today, 23rd of April. And William Wordsworth also died on this date, as did William Shakespeare. So a very, very eventful date to have in one's diary. I want to ask you, what is your favourite Shakespeare play? Macbeth, Othello, As You Like It, Measure for Measure, The Tempest, Cymbeline, Winter's Tale, Midsummer Night's Dream, Richard II, Henry IV, so many great Shakespearean plays out there. And I'll tell you mine. If I had to pick one, I would say Romeo and Juliet. And the reason for that is I feel like of all the plays, it's the one I've got the deepest and most intimate connection with. So when I first started working at the Royal Opera House, I got a job by auditioning for an acting role in Romeo and Juliet with the Royal Ballet. So in 2019, I began rehearsals with the Royal Ballet and was acting as a litter bearer, a townsperson in Act 2, and a monk in Act 3. And I just suddenly found myself in a whole new world that I never even knew existed. Working in a ballet, seeing these artists and athletes at just the highest level. The music of the production, so this production of Romeo and Juliet has choreography by Kenneth MacMillan and a sumptuous score by Sergei Prokofiev. And so I was just immersed in that, the music, the dancing. And it's interesting, obviously Romeo and Juliet was created as a play, and because this is a ballet production, there is no speaking in it. There's no words. But there's so much poetry, and that poetry is in motion. And I feel like the style of Shakespeare, his writing, his lyrical way with words lends itself so well to musical interpretation and dance. And so there's something about this production that just works so well, and so much is being communicated without language. What it is language of the body. So that's really interesting. Some other thoughts about Romeo and Juliet and why I like it so much. I think that even besides Romeo and Juliet, the two main characters, there's just such an array of well-defined characters. You know, the mercurial Mercutio, the hot-headed best friend of Romeo. Everyone loves him. He's funny. And then you've got the tiger-like Tybalt, great kind of with the sword, very intimidating, very lithe, and also unpredictable. And then you've got the benevolent Benvolio, who's more thoughtful and less kind of manly in a sense, but still a very kind of affectionate and caring friend of Romeo's. And then you've got the nurse and Lady Montague and Lady Capulet, and so many characters that just all in a sense could have their own play. They're really well defined characters and just give you this sense of the whole play, the whole story. I also love the atmosphere of the play. This hot, sticky, sensuous air of Verona. And that brings me quite nicely to a short passage that I want to read you. It's from Philaret Chasles, French critic. And this is in this beautiful kind of preface to a play I've got on Romeo and Juliet. He says this: Who cannot recall lovely summer nights when the forces of nature seem ripe for development, and yet sunk in drowsy languor, intense heat mingled with exuberant vigour, fervid force and silent freshness? The nightingale's song comes from the depths of the grove. The flower cups are half closed. A pale lustre illuminates the foliage of the forest and the outline of the hills. This profound repose conceals, we feel, a fertile force. Beneath the retiring melancholy of nature lies hidden burning emotion. Beneath the pallor and coolness of night, we divine restrained ardours. Each flower, brooding in silence, is longing to bloom forth. Such is the peculiar atmosphere with which Shakespeare has enveloped one of his most wonderful creations, Romeo and Juliet. Not only the story upon which the drama is founded, but the very form of the language comes from the South. Italy was the inventor of the tale. It breathes the very spirit of her national records, her old family feuds, the amorous and bloody intrigues which fill her annals. Juliet, too, is wholly Italian, with small gift for forethought and absolutely ingenious in her abandon. She is at once passionate and pure. I really love that, how it kind of evokes and paints this very vivid image of the atmosphere of Romeo and Juliet, the story. And as I was talking about that kind of hot, sticky, sensuous air and the kind of brooding tension between the Montagues and the Capulets, the joy and jubilation of summer celebration. And there's this fantastic moment in Act 2 in the Royal Ballet's Romeo and Juliet where the mandolin dancers come out and, you know, I think all 90 dancers and everyone on stage is basically kind of dancing together, and the music's fantastic, and the mandolin dancers are doing this extraordinary acrobatic sequence. So there's the atmosphere, the well-rounded characters. There's also the speed. I mean, the entire event of the plot takes place over a period of 4 or 5 days. You know, the two lovers meet on Sunday, they're wedded on Monday, they part at dawn on Tuesday, and then are reunited in death on the night of Thursday. So it's a very great lesson in the immediacy of life and how quickly things can just be set alight. So I'm going to leave you with one of my favourite moments from the Royal Ballet's Romeo and Juliet. This is a scene in which Romeo, Mercutio and Benvolio are on their way to the masked ball, and together they are just kind of being young boys and sort of teasing and jesting with each other. And this dance is performed by Stephen McRae as Romeo, Alexander Campbell plays Mercutio, and Tristan Dyer plays Benvolio. But before I say goodbye and leave you with that stunning dance, I want to share one photo, as I always do on Sunday, the photo of the week, or the flower of the week. And I think this is a great one to share in the context of Shakespeare and the double death of Romeo and Juliet. This is a photo by Craig Burke from Leonard's Lee Gardens, and it shows the camellias and rhododendrons crashing down over the double Hanamichi. Now, we've not had a double Hanamichi yet. I've not even talked about what it is, but as you already know, the Hanamichi is a flower path. The double Hanamichi, or in Kabuki theatre you would call it the Kari Hanamichi, is basically 2 Hanamichi, so 2 wooden platforms running through the audience. And basically what the double Hanamichi would allow would be two actors conversing or in dialogue with each other completely in the middle of the audience. So you kind of got the audience in between and on either side of the two Hanamichi stagings, and the characters are speaking to each other there. I think that's a really beautiful symbol for two reasons. And you can see that there's two flower paths in this photograph, which I love. And in a way that could be, you could think about Romeo and Juliet, or Montagues and Capulets, or Mercutio and Tybalt. You've always got two sides vying against each other in this play. And so I really like that there are two paths in this photograph. Also, the very dramatic crashing of the camellias and the rhododendrons is just a wonderful image, because Romeo and Juliet, the whole plot comes crashing down and ends with the death, begins with love. And, this photograph is just a great lesson too, that all beautiful things must come to an end. And like the seasons, like the story of Romeo and Juliet, it's not a comedy. It's definitely not a comedy. And I think lastly, this little image of the double Hanamichi, the Carrie Hanamichi and the photograph is great, because you've got, and you will hear this in a second, Sergei Prokofiev being inspired by Shakespeare, being inspired by the play, and then creating the musical language of Romeo and Juliet through music, through his talents. And so here you've got two geniuses, Sergei Prokofiev and William Shakespeare, who both celebrate their birthdays today, intermingling, coming together, and you're seeing the product of these two absolute heroes. So I leave you with that. Hope you enjoy the dance and the music by Sergei Prokofiev. Please tell me what your favourite Shakespeare play is. You can just write the play down, or you can also share a few words and explain why, if you like. Completely up to you. And wishing you a beautiful and poetic start to the new week.